We're going to do a little overview of Access Chapter 1. And in Chapter 1 we're going to look at a file called Traders. A database is a collection of different objects, and you can see on the left here we have our objects window where it shows tables, queries, forms, and at the bottom potentially reports, macros, and modules. So there's 6 different object types. Looking across the top of the screen, you can see that we have a File tab, a Home tab, a Create tab, External Data, and the Database Tools. Under the Home tab, we have things like sorting and filtering, working with records, finding information. Under Create, this is where we actually create our objects in Access. If we go back here, I want to look at a table called Customers, and I'm going to double click on it. And you can see in this particular window, it shows at the bottom of the screen that we have 91 records or 91 pieces of information. Across the columns in the table, these are called fields or field names. If I go over here to the left, up here where it says Views, you can see that a table has multiple views. It has Datasheet View, which is what we're currently looking at. And if I go down here, we also have something called Design View, which is how we make any design changes to the table. Also thing you want to note here in Design View is every table has to have what we call a primary key. And a primary key is a field that you just uniquely identify as a record. So Customer ID is the primary key. We'll go back to Datasheet View and look at this again. Let me widen out Customer ID. So you can see some of the information that we can see in Datasheet View. If we look around, we also have an Employees table. And if I double click on it, you can see it opens it up. And in here, I'm going to widen out the Employee ID field. You can see that there's 9 employees at this company. And the primary key in this case is Employee ID. If I scroll down a little bit, we can also take a look at the employee's form. If I double click on the form, you can see it shows the ID, first name, last name, title, reports to, hire date, extension, and a picture of the employee. There's also a personal info tab that you can also look at in the form. Now, when we start the database section, all of you should at least be able to relate to a form. When you applied for classes or filled out your application for OCC, you had to fill out a form. If you ordered something online, you had to fill out a form. If you go to the bank, you have to and use the ATM machine, you have to use a form on the screen. So all of us at the very least are familiar with forms. Now when you fill out the form, you usually hit some kind of submit button or OK. Once that happens, your information gets written to the table. So we need to start defining some of our objects. So we've talked about tables and forms. Tables, by definition, are a place where records are stored. You can't have a database without having a table. And in most cases, you have many tables in a database. A form, by definition, is just an interface to the table. So you fill out the form, you hit OK or submit, and that information gets written to the table.